everybody. I'm Brad Talinsky. I'm with BackStory Events. We're in for a great evening tonight. I want to thank some of our sponsors, Eventide, Paul Reed Smith, and Guitar World Magazine, who's live streaming this event. You know, if you all want to go back and relive this evening, you can go check it up on guitarworld.com. Anyways, I'd like to bring out our special guests. We're here celebrating the release of their new record, which is coming out September 8th. It's called Shade. I'd like to bring out Living Color, Will Calhoun, Doug Wimbush, Vernon Reed, and Corey Glover. Come on, guys.
Check, check. New York, what's happening?
Have a seat, have a seat.
How's the food, everybody?
It's still daytime.
That's good, though.
So, this is the first record in 8 years, so the question is where you been?
Making this fucking record.
Yeah. It's been a long journey.
Yeah. So, I heard sort of the inspiration to get Living Color going again came in the form of Robert Johnson. What can you tell us about that?
We were invited to be part of the Robert Johnson Centenary that was being held at the Apollo, and they invited a number of artists to be part of it. Joe Morton was the MC for the whole evening, the actor Joe Morton, and we were assigned the Preaching Blues. Well, the problem was that we were, all of us at the four corners of the earth, we were all doing other things, and we kept going, yeah, okay, we got this song, we got this thing coming up, we got this thing, and then it came to the day, and we still hadn't had a rehearsal or anything, and we were literally in the dressing room and about to go on, and we were listening to different versions, and this one riff, and then the lyrics, and then Corey said, put those lyrics on top of that riff. And then we just went out and did it.
They listened.
So that when we did it, it was like we had to just go by our wits. It was really like, flying by the seat of our pants, and it worked really well. And at that moment, we had already had the title, Shade, was kind of floating around. And then it just struck us that, this is what this is about. Like somehow this connection to the blues is what Shade is. And really that was like an underlying principle in the making of the record. But the thing about it, it's like sort of like blues is the DNA. Like we didn't make a blues record per se, like a traditional blues record, but we wanted the blues to inform everything we did.
Fun fact, today is Robert Johnson's death day.
Oh, well, let's raise a
fun.
glass.
I mean, it's not fun, he's dead.
That's
the fun fact. Okay?
Raise a glass.
All right, raise your glass.
Robert.
79 years ago.
So what do you think, what do you think the blues, does it mean anything today in 2017?
Absolutely. It means the same thing. It's our struggle, it's our existence, it's our life, and it's our experiences. A lot of black musicians, especially in America during that time, although they were very famous jazz musicians, etc., they weren't allowed to even walk in the front doors of the venues that they were selling out. The names were on the front of. Yeah. So the stories are about existing and your troubles in your life and the fun, etc. So there's blues today. We covered Biggie's Who Shot You. And in a sense, that's a blues song in a sense, in terms of what's happening, the activity in that song. So it's very relevant today. It's not, I would say, as tangible today.
Yeah.
It's not as available to me as we like it to be in terms of festivals and music and record shops and so on. But as an emotion, as a creation, absolutely. Actually, I think it's heavier today than it was then. You know what I mean? So it's a very important part of all of our spiritual realities.
The blues has transcended. I mean, the blues is on one level. There's this kind of cliche of a black man on his porch, and in a way, we're so familiar with the form, the 1-4-5 blues, that we actually stop listening. We actually stop hearing it. We listen to it, we stop hearing it. But if you really go back and listen to Howlin' Wolf, and you really listen to a song like Spoonful, or I Asked for Water and She Gave Me Gasoline, I mean, you're hearing something, I mean, the sophistication, the psychological sophistication, people miss the psychological sophistication of the blues because, you know, it's supposed to be down-home people, and you know how down-home people are, but people, they understood very well when they said, Hellhound is on my trail and the devil took my woman. All of those things were the result of very deep thinking and feeling. And it's amazing how the blues affected musicians from the British Isles for a sec, you know, musicians from Scotland, from Ireland, from all over the world. And a band like Led Zeppelin kind of took the blues, turned it sideways, and brought it back. So it's still current. You hear an artist like Gary Clark Jr., he's like a modern-day avatar of the very same thing that Howlin' Wolf was talking about.
Yeah, I mean, when I listen to Robert Johnson, it also feels like he's a very contemporary-sounding singer, I think. I don't know, what was it like to sort of wrap your brain around that, Corey?
Well, the thing about, particularly with preaching blues, is that it's a sort of a tome about depression. It's like, it's a sneaking chill. That's what these are the words that he's using. I mean, it's couched in language that sounds kind of colloquial, but it really is about his emotional states and this very, very deep depression that he can't seem to get himself out of, that he's looking to God to help him get out of. And when you think about it that way, you go, shit, I can't. That's a lot. That's a lot to deal with. That's a lot to be able to find in yourself and then send it out into the world.
Yeah. You know, Vernon, it's funny when I think about you as a guitar player, a lot of times it's, you know, I think more in terms of like hard rock, metal, jazz, or, you know, that kind of thing. But did you ever go through more of a traditional sort of blues phase, or is that, I mean, to all of you guys, is that something that you maybe discovered more as you
Well, my first guitar teacher was a barber named Melvin, and he was from North Carolina. And whenever he wasn't cutting hair, he had his guitar on his knee. He would sit in the chair, and he was right on my block. And he was one thing he told me, he said, "Vernon, never let anyone take the pick out your hand. Never let anyone take the pick out your hand."
It's the kung fu of guitar playing.
You know what I mean? It was, you know, and he would just, and half the time he would just tell stories. You know, he would show me a little something, but he would just tell stories. And so like in the beginnings of how I started to play guitar, you know, that had a very big impact on me.
Yeah. Well, it is, I mean, you guys definitely brought, even if it was put together on the spot, I mean, at least as far as the recording, you definitely brought a new angle to this classic music, you know. And I was struck by the guitar solo. I haven't really heard you play much slide guitar.
Oh, yeah.
And it was very cool, like it's this combination of little bits of slide with using your fingers.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was just an unusual approach, and it also, at times, sounds like a harp. It's really a cool solo.
Well, thank you. I mean, you know, there are a lot of wonderful, I mean, I think about the great slide players. I mean, there's so many of them now, but if you think about someone like a Dwayne Allman, who just made the guitar speak, or a Lowell George, I mean, you know, like, and just to have, you know, to take that on as a thing to do, it was like a little daunting to do it, but then I just was like, you know what, I think I have something that I can say with it. Mm-hmm. And really, I was just really happy. You know, we recorded like Preaching Blues a bunch of times.
7.
I say it was 5. We have a dispute about how many times we did it.
7.
5.
35.
5.
5 times 7, 35.
7.
5. anyway, the fifth time we got it right.
I think what helped us also is, Vernon has that ring finger that he uses as a slide. And even on the last record, The Chair in the Doorway, I think Bless Those was a song that actually was part of the DNA of this as well. You know what I mean? Sometimes you do a record and there's a song or something that has an imprint in it. And as I'm thinking right now, right here, I could see where that song was even kind of like,
Absolutely.
was
Well,
like,
that was the first time I really recorded. It was weird because I
With the
kind
ring
of
finger.
slide, with that particular it's a slide I kind of.
do you have it
kinda
on?
made.
Can you show it to them here?
I don't know.
It'd be much better if you show it. But it's funny how things happen. It's like there's, sometimes you're doing something else and a conversation will happen, and we're very engaged in having conversations all the time. And then-
Arguments.
And well, yeah, and then within a microsecond, somebody can trigger something. Let's do that. Off you go.
Yeah.
So there's not necessarily a setup time or even a time for you to kind of like challenge it, because it's it just kind of like the energy just pulls you in there. But I think Bless Those was a good start to help set us up even for this record, in a sense.
This gets a little nerdy, but usually when a guitar player is playing slide guitar, Guitar World audience knows this. They play with these. No. Play with this long slide thing, and what Vernon has is this small thing that sort of lets him.
Yeah, what?
Go
it's
back
kind-
and forth.
It's like this thing I kind of developed because I want. It's basically I call it a knuckle slide, so I can close my finger all the way around. I can still do fingerings. The one drawback is I can only really do 2 strings at a time, but the increased mobility I find is
Corey, wake up.
Give that man a fish sandwich.
Okay, so you get this question.
yeah. Come on.
Why is this? Why shade is sort of a loaded word? Why is the album called Shade?
Ready? Are you ready? With the absence of shade is not necessarily the absence of light, but it requires light in order for you to have shade. So it's the spaces in between that we're trying to get to. Go on.
Physics.
Nerdism.
It's some nerdy shit, is what we did. We figured out.
We're trying to make some shit up. Really, the record should have been called Shady. It took us down there 5 years to make this record. I was like, we're gonna have to change the title to this. Matter of fact, we had been working on the record so long that I just gave up and just said, we already recorded. The record already came out. Let's go on. Let's just go to the next record.
We worked
right
on
now.
the record so long it developed a shadow.
It just developed a shadow. It had a 5 o'clock shadow.
Well, this begs the question: why did it take so damn long?
That's how it
I'm
is
gonna
in the
start
world of
with
living color.
well, I'm going to start with honesty.
No, you're not.
Yeah, I am going to start with honesty.
Uh-oh.
Now you know you're gonna lie.
Well, we should start with it anyway. With the jokes and all the jokes aside, the thing about the band that's fantastic is, we're really hard on each other. We're hard on the music, and we didn't feel completed. There were a few stages where we felt like we had the record and we played it and we said that's not it, or that's half of it, or really, out of the 10 songs or 12 songs or 15 songs, only 3 are really moving me, and that's just the honesty of not making records into an exercise of I spent a year or 2 years or 3 years and we have 15 songs and I'm done. Political climate, songs, keys, tempos, and vibes. We were auditioning all kinds of things as we do on all the recordings, but it wasn't completed. We didn't feel like it was really completed, to be perfectly honest with you. And we went around to working with the great producer Andre Betts, and there was a moment when we've made all of our records really going into a recording studio and playing like we play live. And Andre Betts had a concept of us kind of recording these 8, 16, and 24-bar jams and grooves and assembling songs. So that was a kind of a new vibe for us. So there was a moment where we still had to go in that room and still vibe with each other and hash those songs out. So we had an A and B kind of experience. So honestly, whether it was 3 years or 4 years, it just wasn't completed. And I feel personally, when the record's over, I don't have to listen to it anymore because I felt like I put what I wanted to put into it, and I feel great about it. But records are also those kind of things where you never want to walk away from them feeling shoulda, coulda, woulda. Only if we added a song, only if we stretched the solo 4 more bars, or we didn't use that intro that was cool. That's a painful thing to live with when you're creating your own art. Art's a freedom of expression. You want to be able to say what you feel, and you want to live it. And if you're comfortable with it, it kind of almost doesn't matter, really. It's a person's opinion, because getting back to the honesty word, you want to give them an honest sort of a snapshot of how you feel about that tune or those recordings or that album. And as long as you can do that, you can take the slaggings and folks saying, but for you not to complete something properly and then someone to slag it, it's going to hurt sort of twice as much. So that's an important part of our process of completing records.
Was there like a turning point where it wasn't there, and then all of a sudden you guys got into like, okay, now we have it, now this thing's going to get done?
Well, the turning point was we weren't there. We weren't in the studio. You got to go in the recording studio to make a record. It's not going to walk up to you. It's like in your instrument. You have an instrument. You have to walk over to that instrument every day to play it. It's not going to walk over to you unless you got a real magic instrument. I wouldn't mind getting to go with that. But to put another, just to break it all down, look, we're older now. When you're younger, you have a lot of, you have this gun-ho, let's all get in the van and ride across America and all other bullshit. But the reality of it is everybody's got kids. I'm a grandfather, and life is real. You know what I mean? So as you wake up in the morning, you might say you want to do this, but that is waiting for you there. So honestly, it took us, the band, in my opinion, a moment to get assembled, to be able to get a consistent momentum to go in and make the record. We'd start, then we'd stop, we'd go off, somebody would go here, go there. That's how life is. But over time, there was if I put it like this, the record took 5 years. We probably spent 4 months on it. The other rest of the time was in a sense
rehearsals.
It was conversations or this or it's just life. It's the reality of what's going on. It's so we're making a record a different way. It was challenging for everybody, but at first it was just the hardest part was just getting everybody in the studio.
Well,
But we did it.
I want to give a shout out to Missy Colazzo and Megaforce Records.
Yeah.
Because she is an incredibly patient woman. I mean, this record was delayed. And we're all on social media, and I'm on Twitter. We're all on Twitter. And, there were times when people asked when the record was coming out, and I would give them a date, and then the date would pass. And it really felt like breaking a promise, but the thing was not, certain issues were not resolving, certain things weren't coming together, and it was only gonna happen if everything was right. And we certainly didn't start out to make a broke-ass Pyromania, but so it took 8 years to do, you know what I mean? But we stayed with it, and Missy stayed positive throughout the entire ordeal of it. And in fact, there were things that went on where we had songs and we make our list of songs and the song would be off. And at one point we were making a list and Missy said, oh, everybody in the office likes this particular song, Program. And Program was actually a song that we had basically taken off the record. And because she said, oh yeah, everybody likes that song. And it made us re-listen to it and think about it in a different way. There was a song, that I actually wrote the bulk of it, and I was, really wanted it on, and it was not right. Yeah. It was not right it wasn't part of the story.
I hate that song.
I know you do.
But that's honest. Vernon's being very honest. That's how you make records.
So am I.
It's a process. You have to lay it out. You have to try certain ideas out. Then the hardest thing is just living with it yourself. And listen, at the end of the day, your biggest, all your issues lie between your 2 ears in your brain right here. That right between here is where all the madness starts and ends. So when you make records, and over time, It's, you know, you really want to go out and make I want to make the best record, whatever, but you just have to let it happen. You just have to make the mistake. Have Corey tell you that song sucks.
Over and over and over again.
Have somebody else tell you, I like that song. It's like a chef. A chef cooks. A real good chef will come out and go, yo, man, how was the, well, he may not go, yo, unless he's from the Bronx. Well, but he might say, you know, how is the food? Is it too salty? What can I do? They ask you, you know. And in light of this, making this record, we had to actually get out of our own way to be able to make this record happen, or we default, not necessarily it's a bad thing, but we could go back to something that we are comfortable with. And that's where Andre Betts was able to go, was able to challenge us, because he was like, you know what, guys? He's a straight no chaser kind of guy. This is hot, that ain't hot. And he will tell you exactly why it ain't. Plus, what he did was, which was really good, we used to do this back in Sugar Hill days, he would do a survey. And this would piss a lot of folks off. But he would do a survey. What he would do is he'd get a bunch of folks to come into the studio, play them the records. He'd give you a pen and a piece of paper. Some straight up ad, you know, this is how you do it in the ad business. And basically, he played the stuff, and he said, write down what you like, write down what you don't like. And he had a nice spread of different people, some friends, some folks you didn't really know, young and old. And when you assessed it all, sometimes it was like you go, okay, but it gave us another, in my opinion, another opportunity to look outside of ourselves, from the outside, looking back in and listen to how it's affecting somebody. What do you think? I've been listening to the record for 2 years, 3 years.
Well,
what do you think?
it's I think it's a super interesting, you know, it's a diverse record. We started out by talking a little bit about them covering Robert Johnson blues song, but there's all kinds of other music on here, and one thing that was really cool was the cover of Biggie Smalls' "Who Shot You." I mean, whose idea was that to do that song?
Well, Bernie,
Well,
chime in.
it's interesting because it really started out, we were thinking about things to record. And one of the things that came up was that whenever we were touring, like we were touring on the Chair in the Doorway, and Corey, when it was time to do his mic check, he would bust into the rhyme from "Who Shot You?" And Corey's not a rapper, but but it's the one time I heard him rap that he actually sounded good. So then I was like, man, you're always doing.
Time it sounds like I sucked, evidently.
That's a backhanded. That's what they call. That's what's known in the profession as a backhanded compliment.
Here's one. Kiss my ass.
No, that's a front loaded.
The rest of the time he didn't sound that good, did he, Vernon?
So then.
Bob Dylan once said, "A friend is somebody who will stab you in the front." I think.
There you go. There you go. So I said, no, why don't we record "Who Shot You?" And, you know, basically, Andre, we pulled up the song, we kind of made our version of it, and then we went away. And I was thinking that Corey was going to do a version of it where he rhymed on it, and really wisely they decided that Corey was going to sing it, which is very different. It's a very different approach than the original. And I was a little surprised, but it turned out to be the best way for us to do it, because we're actually not rappers, you know. So it was really cool. But then this whole thing about discussion about gun violence started between the four of us, and also with all the police shootings and all the other various shootings that were going on. The song that we really did from a fan's perspective took on another meaning. So it wasn't, we didn't record it to talk about the subject. We were coming at it from just like, oh, this is a cool thing to do, and we're fans of this thing. But then suddenly, the context of the song really shifted for us, and it really shifted at the point at which we did a video for it, with David Taylor directing it. So the song is, and the other thing about the Biggie Smalls tune is, the story of that song was really about the first time Tupac Shakur was shot. He was shot and wounded first here in New York City outside of Quad Studios in Midtown. And when Biggie did that song, that's kind of the thing that set off the enmity between the two of them, really set off the East Coast, West Coast thing. And then when you think about what actually happened to Christopher Wallace, then the song becomes like almost like a folk tale, a blues narrative, when you consider what ultimately happened to him.
I don't want to go super deep down a political path, but the opening song on the record is Freedom of Expression. And considering all the events that have gone on over the past week, there's been a lot of talk about where does that begin and where does that end? You know,
It ends with punching Nazis.
I can feel that.
Hard.
It's tough. Doug, you started out, or one of your earlier gigs in your career is being sort of the house bass player in Sugar Hill Records. And I was just wondering, how much you guys into hip hop? I mean, you're known for being rock music, but does that affect your life? Is that something that's important to you guys as musicians?
Absolutely. We grew up with Doug, the house bass player. He's on, I think, all of the classic hip hop songs that came out. I'm from the Bronx, which is the home of hip hop. And Brooklyn is dope. I was born in Brooklyn. Brooklyn's dope. Brooklyn's dope. However, Bronx is the home of hip hop.
You know, there's a big old greasy butt.
But now we're talking about shade, so we're going to get back to the record.
Which is all that's happening up here is nothing but shade.
Shady.
We'll save the geographical locations for another conversation. But it affects us all. We all grew up with it. I think I think he definitely was the impetus of that whole Sugar Hill hit song thing. How our communities started out with block parties and, you know, the influence of a lot of Caribbean culture. The rappers that, when I was 12 years old, that used to rap to bands, they rap with bands. DJs weren't really cool or on stage with rappers at that time. You had great live musicians, which is what Doug and Skip and those guys were doing over there. So there was a transformation between the live musicians going into the DJ thing, and then it became this concept. But yeah, I mean, we're all friends with KRS-One and Chuck D and so many other folks. They were on our first record. Verner's playing on PE's first record. So the reality of rap to us is it's freedom of expression. You talked about that title. It gets into that concept. It's changed obviously over the years, but yeah, it was a new art form. It dealt with a lot of different issues. It dealt even with some political issues of the Reagan era, of a lot of art programs getting canceled, and a lot of young people weren't able to have instruments in their school anymore, or places to go to play piano or to take violin or take ballet. So a lot of things started happening in community centers, started happening in the parks. So the brilliant concept of taking what was available and making an art form that changed the world, to me, had a very large impact. So we were all involved in it, I think, personally and collectively, with working with rappers and growing up with the music and the culture, with graffiti and, you know, going to the clubs. And
break dancing the way you do.
You know, I
Find
think
the drums, electric slide.
I think
Locking, popping.
When I think back to like when you know, Sugar Hill Records started, 1979. Being the house bassist there, I had already been at that same company for 5 years. Watching the transition of being with a label, working with Sylvia Robinson, who was a brilliant woman. She was a great producer, and coming off the heels of her success as one of the first black duos with Mickey and Sylvia, doing stuff back in the late 50s and 60s. You know, she helped mentor me. You know, she was 14 years old when she was singing with big bands and stuff like that. But coming from Sugar Hill, but then watching how her and Joe Robinson were able to take a label and work with R&B artists and you know, the Moments and stuff like that, and then let that run its course. And then they were clever enough to be able to see what was going on in the streets at that time, and Sylvia could smell a hit. So she would always like, you know, what's going on, what's hot. She could see things that other people kind of like couldn't see because she was seeing it from a pure artistic point of view and how it's hitting the folks. I just think that watching these transformations and going from R&B, same R&B producer, and all of a sudden now Sylvia Robinson is producing hip hop, and seeing how it was able to kind of create this multi-billion-dollar industry that's going on right now. Hip hop has eclipsed all music right now. It's bigger than rock and anything else. But being there at the dawn of all of that and seeing and watching how folks like Grandmaster Flash and them would come over from the South Bronx and take the bus over to George Washington Bridge and go to Route 4 and walk down West Street and come in like a gang, and they were just happy to be able to be in the studio and stuff. Just watching these transformations over time, they could see how people were able to develop and actually start a whole another kind of frequency going on. Whether you want to say it started from Kool Herc back 44 years ago at the community center, him and his sister gave a party, to transitioning from all the stuff that was taking place in the South Bronx, and moving forward. And here we are right now covering a song like "Who Shot You," and for me personally, it's kind of like it's kind of something that I'm happy to be a part of, because us Living Color, we've been able to not just take hip hop, but we've taken all kinds of different styles. We've never really settled on one particular style, ever. It's good that hip hop is a part of this DNA right now, and we're able to present it in a good time like right now. And actually, a song like "Who Shot You" is perfect to display, as is a song like "What's Going On" is perfect to display. They both bookend. They both have a story that's similar. Marvin Gaye and Biggie both died from gun violence.
And so did Robert Johnson.
And so did Robert Johnson. So not that we're pimping that or anything like that. This is just true, real American stories and the reality of how we're living in this world. So seeing the journey of folks that kind of like get involved with we make records. We do it because we love it. But we also do it because we want to enable other people to be able to have an opportunity to enjoy their life as well. My days at Sugar Hill was about helping to enable other folks like rappers musicians weren't digging on rappers. They used to dog them.
That's really true.
They were not
That's
having
really
it.
true.
When we used to come out and play with Sugar Hill Gang, we play one song, we'd be opening up for Parliament Funkadelic. They used to call us Johnny One Song. You know what I mean? Until that one song was mass pandemonium for about 14 minutes, and then people had to check themselves. Then you fast forward, you say, I remember all these folks that were like, oh man, why are you doing that music, man, blah, 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 blah. Next time I see them, they got the Kangol hat on, gazelles, you know what I mean? And they're talking, yo, man, motherfucker, you sure they get transformed? What lightning hit you? But that's what happens, you know what I mean? Because when something's hot, people want to get on the bandwagon. But I remember, I was there. So as we are, right now, we are here as elders, and now hip hop is 44 years or whatever. Look, it's all relevant. It's like, hip hop is like dark matter in space. It's everywhere. Blues is like dark matter. So it's all, in my opinion, connected. I'm glad we're able to do "Who Shot You." I'm glad we're able to do, "What's Going On" by Marvin Gaye. I'm glad that we're able to do
Inner City Blues.
Huh? Inner City Blues. I'm sorry. Inner City Blues. Correct me. And the fact that we're here right now to be able to present Shade to y'all without further ado.
Well, not the whole thing. We only gonna. Hey, don't get too excited. Don't get too excited.
We're going to play the whole album.
We're not.
Backwards.
Backwards.
That's not going to happen this evening.
On
Friday night.
You're gonna come back 5 years with us right now back to the
It's going to take us
Apollo
5
Theater.
years to do this.
It's going to take us 5 years.
We're going to ask a couple more questions and open it up to the audience, and the guys are going to play. But, we talked a bit about blues, you talked about hip hop, but, I mean, on this record, you guys do plenty of what you guys do, which is
Chaos.
incredibly unique and cool. And one of the songs on there we talked about earlier is "Program," which is a great rocker, but it sort of opens up with a skit where you sort of dog your own
Where
song.
are they? You said, where are they now?
So
Yeah, man, find me a rocker. What's his name? Scarface.
That's Scarface, yeah.
the song starts with somebody sort of like trying to remember the cult personality and singing the riffs. So, I mean, how did that all come about?
Well, Andre found this audio of Scarface from the Ghetto Boys, and he was talking to one of his friends, and he wanted to, find me a rock band. And he said, da 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 da, and
You gotta admit, it is funny though.
It is kind of when you hear.
You haven't heard it.
It's kind of
really
it's
is
kind of funny. And then we
It's honest.
yeah. So we
Have y'all heard it? Y'all heard it? Okay.
6 people.
It's pretty funny. I mean, he's basically taking the piss out of. He can't remember who the hell Living Color is, but he knew the riff.
Right.
You know what I mean? And this is a rapper.
Yeah.
Right.
But then you guys
the
kick
bright
into
side
a,
of that
a
is
great
that's,
song. Man.
That's impact. That's impact. It happens all kind of ways. It happens with people knowing who you are, knowing what the song is. I think Colt was the first song that I think put the band on the map. That video and the riff and the lyrics. It was an interesting time, in the music business as well, with rock bands being signed and labels and that kind of thing. It's a very interesting vibe. So the riff is sometimes what people sing, or they know us from that song, sometimes with that song only. But I take it as positive impact.
Yeah. Because we are Guitar World, I'm at the risk of
Putting you back to sleep.
putting Corey back to sleep.
oh, he's halfway there.
I just want to ask Vernon a quick question about his new guitar, the PRS,
Oh yeah.
which you guys will be
Let me get out
hearing.
of the way, Vernon. You could come.
Are we doing show and tell now?
Oh,
Is that the
Jesus
part?
Christ.
Show a little show and tell.
Well,
Just
yo,
talk
that's-
about it for a second.
Oh.
It's a beautiful guitar.
Yeah, this is
And
Would
what's-
you like it? Anybody want a new guitar out here? Is anybody?
so this
You want to
guitar-
see it splinter?
So this so this is the VR the VR S2 Velo.
What does VR stand for?
Vernon Reed?
Oh, yeah.
Asshole.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. And I've known Paul for a really long time, and this is, it's kind of a culmination of just a long-standing friendship and relationship. And, I was always with other companies. I was with ESP, I was with Hamer Guitars, I was with Parker Guitars. And I saw this body, and I went to Paul and I said, man, could you put a Floyd on this body? And
That's for you layman. That's the vibrato arm
that's
on
the
there.
yeah, that's the vibe. I'm like
Not a
speaking
dude
like
named
everybody
Floyd.
knows what the hell I'm talking about. And the other thing about this instrument is that all the guitars from various companies have this one feature that I have, is that I have a V-shaped neck. It's the neck profile. So like afterwards, if anybody wants to actually feel, with it,
Do you want to touch his neck after he's been playing 3 songs and eating salmon cakes downstairs
we're gonna have to,
without a napkin?
well, maybe not.
With hot sauce.
Okay, you may have to just take my
would be the
word
first one?
for it then. But it's
Raw.
a thing. It's funny because that's actually tied to. We were downstairs talking about something kind of sad. We were talking about 48th Street, and 48th Street was the musicians' district, and it's completely vanished. And at one point in my younger days, starting to play, I was in either We Buy Guitars or Stuyvesant Guitars, and
I worked there.
Wow. So I got my hands briefly on a 63 Strat with a V-shaped neck. At one point between 63 and 65, Fender did a couple of different neck shapes, and one of the shapes was a V shape. And at the point that I felt this neck, I said, this is what I want my guitars to feel like. So all the guitars, like the guitar in the Cult of Personality video, the multicolored ESP, that has a V-shaped neck. All of the Hamer guitars that I subsequently played, and the Parker guitars, I've requested this shape, and that's the other feature of this instrument, is that the VR Velas have a V-shaped neck, and the original V-shape, Paul sent me a custom 24 and had their usual neck shape, and I said, I really like the V-shaped neck. So Rich Hannon, who works for PRS, he said, well, just send it back. So I sent it back, and then Paul went and took it himself into the shop and reshape the neck himself. And that meant a lot. You know what I mean? He's one of the few famous, his name is on the instrument. He's one of the few named luthiers who's associated with his company. So it really means a lot to have this relationship with him.
That dude cares. And
He does, for real.
all I have to say is, you guys, this is right here, Doug, where Doug's playing. This is a spaceship, you know, that you're navigating here. Like, people don't think about bass players as having pedals, a lot of pedals, but you've got a whole thing going on here.
He's competing with Vernon.
No, none of these pedals. This is just, they're all dummy Marshall speaker cabinets. None of this shit works. This is just all show and tell. That's all it is.
Except Eventide.
Except the Eventide pedals. No, I'm only kidding. No, you know, the whole thing about, you know, as a bassist, I just like to, I like sound. And it doesn't matter if there's a waveform. It could be a fart. If that fart is in key, I'm digging the shit. I'm like, it's all right with me. That was some cheese you ate before. You know what I mean? But sorry, kids. But I mean, you know, the whole thing about life is we hear sounds all the time, right? You hear these, you know, thunder, lightning, animal sounds. I always like sounds. I mean, I like the sound of my friends over here. You know, noisy
right after he was
like
talking
this.
about farts, it's
You know,
fantastic.
But all, you know, but all being said and done, you know, like as a just a player, you know, as I was coming up playing, I came up in the days of, you know, Jimi Hendrix and cheap wah-wah pedals coming from Japan and stuff like that, you know, little knockoffs and stuff. So when I first started playing, I just would plug stuff in to see what it sounds like. And over time, you just develop a kind of like, you know, you find a way how to have these different sounds be a part of your vocabulary, sonic vocabulary. And that's no more, no less. Look, I can unplug all of this stuff and I'm still going to get down. Doesn't really matter. I don't really need none of it.
You say that?
It's true.
For real. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, it's like we are living color and we are live right here. You know, and we're living in 2017. I already did all that retro shit back in the 70s. I don't need to put on some retro stuff and try to put my Fender bass on. I got a ton of those. I live in the period of now, right now. I'm not looking in the rearview mirror all the time. I live in now. And in doing that, you know, we've been able to all explore the sound and the sound possibilities. And that's kind of what we do. With Vernon, myself, we have a friendly competition going on. I'll look over there and they'll, you got a little something I don't have. But, and then he'll be like, he won't talk to me for 2 days. I'm like, I got you, I got this pedal here. So I mean, it's this subliminal conversation. But all being said and done, it's all really real. Will Calhoun, the same thing. When
Wait, hold up. I gotta stop you right there. Come on, I gotta stop you.
Okay.
I gotta stop you. Will Calhoun is a drummer with a pedal board. Isn't that a great idea? No.
Isn't that a great idea? Isn't that
fantastic?
fantastic?
He doesn't have his pedal board today.
Isn't that fantastic? Well, you know what? Doug made a really good point. And, you know, it started really influence. You know, Doug and I had this project called Head Fake, and we were doing a lot of things together as a rhythm section. And one of my frustrations with electronic percussion instruments were they sounded like a drum set, and I felt like, why should I spend $1,500 on an instrument that sounds like the acoustic one? So I was jealous of the guitar players and the bass players. Why can't the drum set feedback and distort and loop and phase and shimmer, right?
No.
Shimmer.
He said shimmer.
Do the shimmer.
He did say shimmer.
He said
It does shimmer.
shimmer.
And I meant it.
How scintillating.
And I meant it. Shimmer.
Shimmer or
And
shimmy.
I'm influenced by my bandmates. I think Vernon and Doug have fabulous sounds and toys, and why should they have all the fun, right? I mean, why can't I join them in the fun? Vernon vibes me about it a lot, but you know, they influence me. I asked Vernon and Doug personally, what does that do? How does it work? You know, Doug taught me how to make the chain. Don't put that pedal before that pedal. If you want to get the best sound out of it, you have to go this way. And it has changed my approach to playing acoustic drums. It has changed my approach to music. I personally lived abroad on and off, mostly in West and North Africa, and I was studying my instrument in a traditional sense, and the vibration of drums and what it means. At the same time, the electricity and the technology is kind of more the forward motion. And I'm just putting those two things together So, you know, I can put a shade on my plane, you know. That's kind of like the idea is to.
So what he did there.
Nice way to
Well, you know, I mean, the band is open in that way. It's a lot of fun to play live with Living Color because we throw in essences of Ornette Coleman, Bob Marley, the Beatles, the Clash, you know, the Stones, James Brown. All of those things you'll hear sometimes in a song, or you'll hear it sometimes we'll cover the song. So yeah, I like to have a sound palette, and when we come back here to do a show, I'll have my pedal. I promise. It won't look like Doug's or Vernon's, but I'll have my pedal board up, and then you know we can all share.
And then we'll talk.
I
promise you.
We can all shimmer together.
I promise you. Next time you see me, my pedal board will be plugged in.
You never know what somebody likes, right? A sound.
That's a very good
I
point.
think, though, that we figured out why it took 7 years to make the record.
Exactly. No, but I'm
Touché.
saying it's funny because people, you never know what sound somebody likes. I was working with Lauryn Hill. I love her to bits, and I have this one pedal. It's called a synth wah. It just pretty much blows everything up, and it's really, really super low end. And I'm playing it one time, and all of a sudden I hit it, and that neck turned around, looking at me with them eyeballs. I was like, oh shit! And she was like, what is that? Like, that's the green. That's a synth pedal. Doug, I want that on everything. I'm like, you sure? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That moves air. And this is Lauryn Hill, you know what I mean? She's doing her thing, but she friggin' loves that synth wah. I mean, this thing blows. Look, that pedal is so powerful. I usually go into a club and say, y'all got insurance? Or do you want to buy a new PA? One of the two. Just let me know and I'll tighten you up. But she, you know, you never know. A pedal is funny because sometimes people love the sound of it, and they're not musicians, they're not a player. Lauryn Hill's daughter loves the whammy pedal. I let her sit there and play the whammy pedal, and she's 4 years old. But I want to enable the kids to be around the sound because to them, they're free. They're not sitting around going, yo, man, you ain't playing no jazz with that shit, man. You ain't swinging. What's going on, man? You know, they're not musical police officers at that point. They're just free. So put kids, let them play, let them do their thing, and you'll be amazed at what they'll come up with.
They won't let me play with their pedals.
No, Corey breaks everything. Do not let Corey hold a thing. iPhone, nothing. We call him Bam Bam. If you want something broke, anybody have an iPhone that you need broke? Give it to Corey. He'll be juggling with it in 2 seconds. Then he'll break it and just go, sorry, and it gives it right back to you. So, but we love you, Corey.
I hate you.
You want a pedal board too, though.
No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. No.
I'd like to take a couple questions from the audience and then, get the guys on stage and have them play some music.
Yes. Who's first?
Oh, okay.
Hi. Hey, it's great to see you guys. I was just wondering, so you guys kind of rose into prominence in the late 80s when there was a lot of great bands like King's X and many others that didn't quite fit into like a category. That was the MTV era where you had to have a pop, a power ballad song and a pop metal song. I'm just wondering, like, how did it feel to like come in at that era? Did you feel like a lot of pushback, or because you guys were kind of different than what was going on at the time?
Well, we were part of a New York scene, and a lot of the scene was centered around CBGBs, but it was like yeah, right. So it was, but it was a scene. It was like CBGBs, the Peppermint Lounge, the Mud Club, the Cat Club, the original Ritz, Danceteria, Privates. I mean, there was just a bunch of these camouflage area, tramps. I mean, there was like the original Lone Star Cafe with the iguana on the roof.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And so there was an ecology of bands and acts at that time, and we were just a part of it, and it was a great scene to be a part of. I mean, we would see bands like we recently ran into David Perner from Soul Asylum, and we would always wind up we would catch Soul Asylum we would go do shows at the 930 Club with them, and then they would come up to New York and we would check them out. Like one of the early versions of Living Color, we opened the very first time Fishbone played at Irving Plaza. So So that we're a part of a whole, you know what I mean? It was a very, very powerful and very inspiring. Like, as we saw the Bad Brains play Reignition before they recorded it on Eye Against Eye. And when they played the song at the World, we were like, holy shit. This tune was like
Why are we
supreme.
playing
No,
anything right
the
now?
tune was so supreme, it was like, oh my God. Hey, Prong at CBGB's.
Right.
You know, Prong was like, Prong was Godhead back in the day. I mean, they were out the box. So we were part of a thing that was just very Rude Buddha and all these other bands, all different styles, all doing all different things. And it was great to be a part of it, to go see bands and hear what they were doing, like a band like the Ordinaires, seeing them do Kashmir, you know what I mean, with violins and the whole nine. So really, it was an electric thing to be a part of, and when I think back on it, we were privileged because we were kind of part of the last wave of bands like Material and what have you, because there was a whole thing with bands like Television and Talking Heads. They would have been, I mean, that's kind of why Memories Can't Wait is on the first record, because I became a Talking Heads fan because, I started to check them out because they were the previous scene previous to us getting in. So it was just incredible, an incredible time.
Yeah, 1980, 89, Steel Wheels
89.
tour. Yes.
Hey.
Okay.
Hi. It's
Hi.
Millie. Nice to see you again. And I will see you in Virginia.
Hello.
I have many questions. I'm going to try and go fast and get it all wrapped up so you can answer as you please. As you are what I consider the black unicorn of rock.
Uniform or unicorn?
Unicorn.
She's talking to you.
The black unicorn
She's talking
of
to you.
rock.
She's talking to you.
Stop it.
Crystal hooves.
Okay. So as you are like
I'm hot.
the only award-winning black rock group still working, still coming out with albums, I wonder what it's like being four brothers on tour as a rock band. Because I do see
see
that
this?
a lot of the time
see this?
y'all go to Europe, and I kind of see that in a kind of Tina Turner, Josephine Baker way, as they're more open to what music can be and
They're
what artists can
paying.
be.
No.
Let her finish the question. It's a
So
really
yes,
good
I want to
comment.
know what that's like and that process and the fact that perhaps this took so long because you're all your own solo artists, strong solo artists, and what that process is to come together when you can go and do your own thing. You're strong solo artists with families, but you still keep it moving. So what's the motivation?
A lot of questions.
There's a couple of things, that you touched on that are huge. I think the solo projects, I want to touch on that piece quickly, are very important for us because everybody comes back to the table with really good information, which helps Living Color kind of move in a way. Maybe there's roads Doug may go down that Corey may not go down. So when the four of us get back together and we're off doing our own projects, I think it's just a healthier investment for Living Color, number one. Number two, the thing about Europe and welcoming, some of that is political. There are a lot of European countries where the government actually takes money from companies to invest in art. Art isn't like a lower level form of education. It's as important as science and mathematics. So it's being funded. So there's not a problem about getting paid for a festival or if a festival is going to go away because the government is supporting it. So there's another kind of a behavior that happens sometimes in Europe at festivals because here the government's not involved and there it is. It changes the game totally. And touring as brothers is deep because I look at it a lot of ways. Africans were in this part of the world before the Ice Age. There's academic proof about that. So traveling really means what? In a sense of going someplace and being somewhere and being isolated or feeling uncomfortable. The reality of us traveling is really interesting because we've been some places in America where we felt like foreigners. 5 hours away from New York, 6 hours away from New York. And we've flown 10,000 miles to Australia and we got treated like we were their neighbors. So I don't kind of look at it in the sense of like being somewhere all the time and I mean, we're brothers. We're very tight, as you can see, because we know how to pull each other's coat and push each other's buttons. But in reality, some of the joy and is the strength. Well, really, it's the strength in everybody's the strength in everybody's vibe on how it is the four of us. I mean, Chuck D made a comment to me like, you know, you guys are on the road and you're 4 black musicians playing rock and you're out there kind of on your own. Whereas when rappers go out, they would take out 45 of their cousins and their homies. So, you know, they'll go on the road and it's a lot of people. You can talk all the mess you want to talk and you can go shopping and hang because you got 25 people from your neighborhood with you. The four of us was the four of us most of the time. And there's a good side to us being fearless, which I love, and being able to really do what we believe in. There's nothing to hide, Living Color to hide behind. You know, we are who we are. We're not apologetic about the music or the lyrics, or how we look, what we say. And it being just the four of us, I think makes it really positive and really strong as an investment. I let some of the other guys touch on some of those other topics.
Here's something I want to say towards that, about the whole alienation thing, whatever. We recently toured with Aerosmith, and we actually played a lot of red states, and we actually played a rodeo, and we played this rodeo, and I could honestly say to the crowd, this is my first rodeo. And here's
corny ass dad joke.
It's true. I'm sorry, but it was true though. I know you hate the fact that they laughed, but they did laugh, and it was true. So here's the thing about that. I'm sure that if I got into a discussion with folks, we would have disagreed about a lot of things. But you know, they responded to our music. They responded to what we did. And I mean, there's a narrative that's easy about people. You know what I mean? You kind of are preaching to the choir that already agrees with you. And there's a risk you take when you go to spaces where they don't know you, or they may not be down with what you're talking about. One of the things about rock and roll is this: if you're not bullshitting, the people will be down. Whatever you're talking about, whoever you are, if you come with it, audiences. Robert Fripp said this about rock and roll audiences, that rock and roll, a long time ago, rock and roll audiences are very attuned to artifice. They may not understand it theoretically. They may not get it, but it's funny. I start thinking about this. What are people responding to when they hear something that they really don't recognize what it is? They don't know the theory behind the scales and arpeggios and things like that, but people in the audience can tell when you're reaching for something or when you're doing something and when you're trying to do something. They can tell when you're doing it and when you're not doing it without any theoretical knowledge, and that is amazing. That's amazing. And when we played this rodeo, you know, I ain't gonna lie, I was like, but we came and we hit, and they responded to the fact that we hit.
And they gave us belt buckles.
They gave us belt buckles and took our,
That's true, that's true.
And they gave us some hat measurements, and black cowboys are back now. The blacks.
The blacks.
Well, 5,994 white people. There was 4 black folks there. That was us.
We tripled the population of Cheyenne, Wyoming.
Cheyenne, that's in Cheyenne, Wyoming.
And they were like, yeah, there's been no crime here.
I saw there was a couple of Negroes.
There's been no crime. I said, we just got here.
I saw the occasional.
Don't worry, we'll fix that shit.
I saw the occasional Negro in Cheyenne with that "help me" look in their eye.
No, but it worked out good.
Take me with you.
Liked it.
No, it was great. They had a sushi restaurant, which surprised me.
Yep.
Because it's water. There's no water around it.
Yeah, it was kind
It was a good sushi restaurant.
It was kind of crazy.
But that's a valid point. I mean, you know, we did get on stage. The stage was pulled out by a tractor.
Oh no, that was the most. No.
Pull the tree.
No, that was the most amazing.
The stage was like.
Yo, they had one tractor that pulled the entire
stage.
I was like nerding my ass off. I was like,
Yeah. It was a real rodeo,
incredible.
y'all.
It
was for real. The
dust
tractor
everywhere,
pulled the
cows,
stage,
manure,
cows,
everything.
It was,
you know.
I actually watched the rodeo. I figured if I'm here, I may as well check it out. You know what I mean?
That's right.
I never saw the whole actual rodeo thing go down, so I thought it was quite entertaining to just watch the rodeo. Can't do that in the Bronx.
Especially when you got on the bull.
But the reality of it is, you know, you talk about the four of us, and you know, we did step up there fearlessly on the stage and want to play the music. And there were times when we've done it, and people were going, "Huh?" And you know, but like I said, it's unapologetic. We mean what we say and who we are, and it's not for everybody.
Well, let's, on that note, let's hear you guys do your thing, because I think it's...
Hey,
Wait,
this guy had a question.
Hold on 1 second. Yeah, what you got to say there, sir?
Besides the hard rock groups you mentioned tonight, were there any more that influenced you?
Any more rock groups, or just groups in general?
Or no, hard rock groups?
Hard rock groups. I would say the closest, maybe in our relationship, was Anthrax for sure.
Yeah!
You know? And by the way, they're also Bronx guys, so we don't have to mention that.
Oh, we don't have to mention it, but
Yeah, that's the second one I heard after Metallica.
Oh, all right. Well, thank you very much. And thank you all for coming out this evening. Really, we appreciate it.
Yep.
The record is coming out September 8th.
Shade, September 8th.
livingcolor.com. Check out the website, COLOUR, livingcolor.com. There's tour dates. We're going to play in New York. We hope to see you. And we're just going to give you a little small vibe. Corey has something he'd like to sing to your taste.
oh yes, he does.
Yes, he does.
So,
So we'll play a little
thanks,
something?
guys.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for coming, and they're going to play a few songs. Give us a couple minutes to regroup, and we'll be right back.